Hey guys, since in the next batch we will be getting 500 meter and then the 600 to 1000 meter runs, and Rubuska, the next character, is the healer, and you guys has been asking, should I get Rubuska? Which healer should I use? Especially now with the Covenant of Water coming out, there's also Fatutu in there, so which character should I get? You can't get both because you are free to play. So here I want to address some of this. I may not be able to address everything, but I will try my best to classify this healer, when they should be used and how they should be used. So at least it can give you a better direction to plan your pools and who to get. So first of all, let us talk about sustain and tanks. Right here, so I classify here into two. And sustain, they can be further classified into another two, which is healers and shielders. Generally, healers are made to be generic, meaning they can function in a lot of different teams. To an extent, even if that team has no relation to that character's specific kit, they should still provide you sufficient healing to survive. And that's the main thing that you should be concerned about. But a lot of these healers right now, they has been designed to fit into specific archetype. So in that archetype, they are not just providing healings or sustain. The buff and everything they do will also make the entire team stronger. And apart from sustain, which is also technically a kind of sustain, tanks. I would classify this character more of like a defensive one, like they can absorb damage, or they increases your defense so you don't take that much damage. So they do have some sustain capability, but they may not be like fully reliable in the sense that you would want to use them as a solo sustain in your team. But I would still claim that if you play carefully, you can. Okay, you can use them as sole sustain even at P0. For example, Kakania, when was released, a lot mentioned that without, I think, her P2 or P3, she will not be able to solo sustain. But in certain fights, I was able to use her as a solo sustain. But lately, obviously, with all the enemy doing even more damage, yeah, that is becoming of a problem. So you are now able to see Kakania is really more of a character that absorbs damage to help to mitigate damage so that your healer can also function better. Especially in a situation that the enemy might one-hit KO you, so even your healer, you don't have enough HP, you might get killed. So at one point in the game, if I'm not mistaken, after Vila, and all the way to like the patch before Fatutu, the team comp is kind of like you need a healer, and then you need a tanker. And then you have a DPS and a support unit. But lately, due to the upgrade of the older healer after they get Euphoria, they are getting so much more. And then with Kiperina and later on Rubuska, yeah, it's kind of returning to the part where you just need one sustain. You don't need a tanker, right? But I don't know, maybe they will start changing the trend again. And after Rubuska, we will start getting some tanker, and then older tanker will be getting Euphoria. So that might happen again if they are going to push the enemy's damage even higher. So it all started off with like at when the game was released, we get Sotheby, Medicine Pocket, Miss New Babel. Sotheby is a healer, Medicine Pocket is a healer, and then we have Miss New Babel, who is a shielder. So it's more like a tank at that point. Then after that, in 1.2, we get Tooth Fairy. So every 3 patches, we get a healer, right? I mean a sustain. So Tooth Fairy, then after 3 patch, we get Ezra. And after another 3 patch, we get Vila, who is a healer. Then after that, it starts with this tank. Like we have Kakania, we have Jay, and Lopera as a single target healer was also lacking a little bit, especially if you are against enemy that do AoE attack. So she also needs some form like a tank. So that time, if not mistaken, it was supposed to be together with Jay. Jay provides shield and that's AoE, but Jay's shield is not strong enough to sustain very well. So you throw in Lopera, and then Lopera provide amazing single target healing even up to today. But now with enemy doing so much damage AoE, Lopera is not able to keep up. But anyway, then after that, we get Fatutu as a healer. Then it kind of repeat back the same trend that every 3 patch, we get a new sustain. From Fatutu to Kiperina, and then now Rubuska. So right after Rubuska, then we have no sustain in that patch, 3.2. And now 3.3, I'm not sure if we are going to get a sustain if following this trend, but maybe. There is also Marsha, right? So will Marsha be the sustain? Or Marsha will end up being more like a tanker? She has some shield going on, but it's mainly for herself. So I'm not sure. We will have to wait and see. But due to reveries, they are then adding more Euphoria, especially for the sustain, like Sotheby, Miss New Babel, and Druvis has very amazing leech, but only for plant team. So they come in to fill up the gap in between the actual banner that do not have a sustain. So now the Euphoria is providing this old character better sustain capability and can fill in the gap. So newer player who comes in, they can get that character, and now they have a strong sustain that could take them or carry them past a lot of the fights. Okay, so 2.3 Sotheby Miss New Babel Druvis. In 2.6, we get Medicine Pocket, which is right after or right before Kiperina. So 2.5, there's a gap there. And my take is because Liang Yue does have some kind of defensive capability. She does make the entire team stronger by lowering the damage they receive. So then in 2.6 Medicine Pocket, 2.7 Ezra, Assassin Collab Vila, then 2.8 Nautica Blood Tide team was generally very tanky. And then we have 3.0 where we did not get a new sustain, nor the Euphoria is related to any sustain. So in 3.1, we will be getting Rubuska. But one thing to take note is that at the start of Reveries, we get a lot of new Euphoria for sustain. So there'll be Miss News Babel and Druvis. So at that point, together with Lopera, Lopera was good up to 200 meter. So that gave us about 4 up-to-date sustain at that point. And there is 3 lockout stage. So it's fine, which means the game gives you slightly more sustain that you need in order to clear endgame fights. But do note that at that point, even the older sustain like Vila and Tooth Fairy was still usable. You can still use them and you can still win. Okay, so we do definitely have more than enough sustain. And when they released 400 meter, they included newer sustain like Fatutu, which then makes everything super easy when she was just released. And then they also updated Medicine Pocket, and then things got even easier. Then when they released 450, which is just this patch, we have Kiperina and with Vila, Ezra, so that resulting in the top sustain being Fatutu, Medicine Pocket, Kiperina, Vila, as well as Ezra. So we have about like 5, and there's 4 lockout content. Okay. But again, 450 meter dash 4 also doesn't really need a dedicated sustain. That's because you can use Beacon Bloom or Anjonala to just permanently stop Ulrich from attacking, which is actually what you should do because not many sustain, especially P0, can actually withstand the ultimate that Ulrich will cast. And we also got to remember that in CN, I think Vila came out after 450 meter was released. So it is like just nice, the quantity of sustain and the stages that we need to use them. Then 500 meter, which is the next patch, Rubuska then entered the scenes and she is actually usable in all of those fights. I guess that's how they designed her to be. And with the damage that 500 meter enemy does, Ezra is not enough. I mean, it's not like unusable. You can still use Ezra if you do things properly. But he is definitely not part of the meta sustain for 500 meters. So with that, we are left with Fatutu, Kiperina, Vila, and Rubuska. And again, 500 meter dash 2, which is also our rig that we are fighting, again doesn't really need a sustain because you can use Beacon Bloom again. Okay, so with that out of the picture, let us directly talk about the healers and how you choose your healer. So here is my guide. It's my opinion. If you have different ways to do it, that is fine. Okay, so first of all, you do it based on team or based on stage. Okay, for example, in 500 meter, it is important to base on stage instead of team. Okay, or you can try to match your team based on which sustain you want to put in which fight, because the enemy hit really hard. If you bring in the wrong sustain, even Rubuska can die, even Kiperina can die. So you need to know what you need to do at a certain point, and of course that I will include in the guide for 500 meter reveries. So please be extra careful on the enemy's attack. It will feel kind of like when we are dealing with Reverie for the first time and like you're fighting against the enemy 200 meter. If you remember that time, the Spatodia, if you're not careful, it just one hit KO your entire team. So you need to play around that. Okay, so it's going to be quite similar in that sense where your sustain plays a very important role. So the second one is directly look into the team building. So if you can brute force a fight, it doesn't matter which healer you bring, as long you have one. But of course, in that case, to be able to brute force, you want to bring your best healer that suits that team. So if you're using impromptu, Kiperina. If you're using rank up, then Vila, right? But if a fight, like I mentioned just now, hits like a truck, so you got to determine your healer first. Should Fatutu be here or should Kiperina be there? And you have the match between the afflators, because in Reveries it's all very much depending on afflators as well. Then from there you start building up your entire team to cover for the 4 stages. Okay? So let's first talk about Kiperina. Kiperina is for impromptu or Ezreal follow-up attack team. Both of them are star, so this will be the star afflators team. And based on the 4 fights in 500 meter 1 is the best stage because the enemy is weak against star. So that is the best place for this team. And the boss also need you to be attacking it many times, and that will actually stunt it. So impromptu can attack so many times. Ezreal can also attack many times. So it's perfect for that stage. But let's say if they failed to stun the enemy, and Spatodia is going to do an ultimate on you. If you stack up Kiperina's shield enough, like you actively use it after it casts multiple times of shield and you actively cast it again to stack it even higher, you will be able to survive. Okay, so that is the benefit of Kiperina's shield. You can somewhat extend your HP, right? Your own HP plus the shield. So now you have a very big pool of HP that the enemy needs to deplete to kill you. So, but apart from 500 meter, since the shield generally works very well, you can use her for all the other fights and you will be able to survive. But the key word here is that at certain point, you need to actively cast her shield or else she might still die. Okay, for 500 meter dash 4, it's actually not very ideal to bring Kiperina. The one that you saw me use Kiperina is because the Broom, Ulrich, and Charon team, they attack really hard to the point that you don't even need that much sustain because the enemy just dies. So this is where I mentioned just now, if you can brute force the fight, then you don't need as much sustain. But if you can't, then you need it. The problem with that Liang Yue fight, 500 meter dash 4, it attacks so many times at certain rounds. Even Kiperina shield can't keep up, and Kiperina doesn't do healing or shield per attack of the enemies. Okay, so that is a little bit of a problem. For the second healer here is Fatutu. Fatutu is mainly for the follow-up attack team because the shell boosts up damage from follow-up attacks. Okay, she's not so effective in 500 meter dash 1 and 4 because the boss does huge one-hit KO AoE ultimate that Fatutu cannot distribute and lower down that damage. Okay, but she will be good for 500 meter dash 2 and 3. 2 is because the enemy now, Auric, is weak against mineral. So Fatutu does fit into the mineral team, such as the blood type team as well, which generally is actually mineral. Then with all the damage reduction from the blood type team, Fatutu will be able to sustain and help with the healing to boost up the generation of blood ties so that Nautica can hit hard. Okay, so and apart from that, 500 meter dash 3, because that enemy, it doesn't do like AoE against all your entire ally, it will just hit 1 or 2 at a time, but it hit a lot of time. So that's where Fatutu's shell will move around and then it will induce healing. So this is where Fatutu can be quite good. The third healer here is Vila. So Vila fits in the rank up team. And she is good for 500 meter dash 3 because the stage does require rank up. So she has the utility to rank up your incantation so that it is easier for us to control the fight and to play around with the mechanics. But for that fight, you also need burn. And rank up team doesn't have burn, but you can always just use the Myth Manifest operatic reflection or something, the Isolt one, and that can inflict burn on the enemy. So overall, Vila is also good if the enemy does a lot of attack because she does healing when the enemy attack as a response. So it's like a counter healing. So she does it at least twice, and her healing is amazing. Okay, but she's not the type where you can withstand a one-hit KO from the enemy, that kind of damage, because she doesn't really extend the HP. She does have sturdiness, but you have to actively cast all the healing, which is quite difficult for you to do so. Yeah, so she's not good against those. And lastly, for Rubuska main unit or main team is the blood type unit. And that is undoubtedly the best team that you can put her in. But since she also has some out related buff, so this also actually make her good for out based team. Okay, so overall she has healing after being attacked, so if the enemy is going to hit you several times, and Rubuska each time will heal the party. Not really each time, but for 2 times I think at most. But one thing good about her is that she allows death prevention at least once. So if you can, let's say you can clear a fight within 10 turns, and in between round 4 or round 5, the enemy will do an ultimate that will one-hit KO you, bring Rubuska in. You can survive that. As long as before the next ultimate you can kill the enemy, there's nothing to worry about, making Rubuska quite a good sustain for stages like 500 meter dash 1 and 500 meter dash 4. She's also good for 500 meter dash 2 and dash 3. Again, dash 2 because you're using blood type team against that stage. 500 meter dash 3 because the enemy hit frequently and she can heal back each time, twice. So yeah, so this makes her pretty much ideal for most stages in 500 meter. So in summary, for the final batches of Reverie stages, at least for this one, not sure the new one in the CN version coming, how will it be like. But for this one, the summary here, if you have Kiperina, that's for impromptu or follow-up attack, Fatutu, follow-up attack, Vila, rank up Moxie, Rubuska, blood type ultimate. So after you have positioned them, then you can slot them into the correct fight, and you should be able to easily clear 500 meter stages. But talking about all the meta team, what about Dynamo? Well, first of all, I want to clarify this. If you have 3 Dynamo unit, you can already easily charge the pulsing field, so you don't technically need a 4th Dynamo unit. So in that case, the 4th slot, you can put any healer that you want. You can put Kiperina, you can put Fatutu, you can put Vila, you can put Rubuska. So here is where you decide your healer based on stage. Because wherever healer that you put in, you can just throw in Dynamo and then you'll be able to complete 500 meter, which is the video that I just posted. I will put the link to those video where I use Broom, Ulrich, and Sharon with all different type of healer, and they easily clear all the 500 meter stages. So I'll put the link to the videos in the video description. So please do check that out. But anyway, here, if like against the 500 meter -1 and -4, even -2, where you have a one hit KO ultimate, you can use Kiperina, Rubuska. If it's like one hit KO single target ultimates, then Fatutu. If you need cleansing, also Fatutu. Vila, if the enemy attacks several times, or you need occasional cleansing, then bring Vila. So exactly how many healer do you need? Okay, so let me extend the list a little bit here. I know some of the older healer can work if played carefully, which is why I don't want to just throw them away from this list. Okay, but you don't like bring in Ezra and then suddenly you die and then you start blaming me for it. I'm just listing it here. Do check my guide later on for each reveries if you want to have better context and how they should be used. Yeah, but anyway, here I'm just putting all the healers, sustains in the game right now. So what you want to do is at least have a healer that cover the roles. So here I have 4 roles, which is to withstand one hit KO ultimate, AoE ultimates, to withstand one hit KO single target ultimates, to withstand enemy that does frequent attack, and also enemy that debuffs you a lot and you require cleansing. But one thing I want to take note as well is that in reveries, exists, and usually in every patch there will be at least one sustain that you can use them. So if you use them, then you don't really have to pull for them, right? Yeah, so anyway here, for one hit KO AoE ultimate, Kiperina, Miss New Bebbles, Rubuska, Ezra, and Medicine Pocket. You notice here I put mostly is character with shield, because as I said, shield is like a HP extender. And Rubuska because it has death prevention one time. One hit KO, you can use Fatutu because you can spread the damage, you can distribute the damage so you don't die. Lopera, as long as the enemy don't kill you, you can really heal back up like 90% of your HP. Rubuska is only one time. If the enemy is going to attack the same unit twice in a row with like the ultimate, then I'm sorry. But if they are choosing different, you can actually sustain for very long in the fight and be able to defeat the enemy. For enemy that does frequent attack, like Fatutu, due to the shell movement, it heals. Rubuska, Vila, Medicine Pocket, Miss New Babel, they go by a very similar mechanic. It's kind of like a counter healing. So every time the enemy attack, they will then heal or they provide shield. Okay, which is good for in-between healings, in-between attack healings. Sotheby can do it, but it's not like a counter. Sotheby has the cure buff, so every time your HP go below 50%, then it heals you back up. And lastly, if you need cleansing, then Vila or Fatutu. And finally, in the context of 600 meter to 1000 meter, this one is not really you choose your sustain based on stage, because this fights, it has very limited turn count. You have just like 10 turns, then you have to switch team. So you got to be able to rotate through the team's rotation effectively and doing as much damage as possible. So yeah, you would want to bring the sustain that suits that team. And
with the
yeah,
other
so here
sustains
I have
that I
is
listed.
if you're using Dynamo.
So yeah, so anyway, that's the end of this video. I hope it does help you out in terms of planning your
I'm not sure which
pools.
stage you can use poison, but I'm just putting it here. Ultimate Medicine Pocket, follow-up attack, Fatutu or Miss News Babbles, and rank up Vila. So if you want to do 600 meter to 1000, you really need that much healer. I don't think you can use assist here, but I might be wrong. Yeah. So this definitely is for like endgame, and the reward is just very not attractive. So if you can't clear it, don't force yourself. You know, you play the game, after that you get more characters, then your characters getting power creep.
more stronger and more stronger characters are coming, then use them. Then you can just delete all this stage by that point, I guess. Okay, anyway, this is all for this guide. I hope it will help you out in terms of how you want to plan your pools for healers, and whether should you get Rubuska or the Covenant of Water Fatutu. It really depends. But for me, I really think sustain is better invested on rather than DPS because they do last longer in the game. Yes, so I guess that's my take. Okay, thank you very much for watching and have a good day.